All right. Well, we can start with weather this morning. And for most of you here this morning, it's another gorgeous morning. A little bit of an exception in the far north. We got a little bit of light rain up there. But the forecast that we're looking at here for most of the state, I think most people will be very happy to hear about. And it's a real straightforward, high probability type of outlook as well. For the last week, though, starting with our review here, it was a warmer than normal week, mostly because of the warm, muggy weather we had again late last week and then into the weekend. On the left-hand side here, you can see our mean temperature departures for the week. Generally from about actually a little less than that, maybe 1 or 2 degrees in the far western UP, but as much as 4, 5, even 6 degrees Fahrenheit above normal across the south and eastern parts of the state. So again, a lot of our growing season, at least early on, was warmer than normal. We were back there last week. The precipitation here really depended on where you were. And so the totals in the middle panel here for the past week ranging from less than a quarter of an inch, in some cases actually dry the whole week in northern portions of the UP, to more than 2 inches, and the same theme we've seen for much of the last several weeks or couple months, with heavier rainfall, especially across the southern third to half of the lower peninsula, from southwest up into the thumb. That area just has been in the every weather system that's gone through the area seems to have traversed or moved over that area. And then in the far right hand side here, you can see these are departures from normal for the last month, so longer term precipitation departures. And I think it's important to note, especially given what we just said, that a huge swing or variety of conditions across Michigan currently, from excess water in the areas I just mentioned here, from southwest up into east central Michigan. You can see there more than many cases, more than 200% of normal precip. But as you move north and west from that, there are other areas of the states, really beginning in the northern and northwestern lower, moving into especially western upper Michigan, where we've been less than half. So we've got a fairly wide range of conditions across the landscape here in Michigan, from too much to too little. Our vegetative drought response index, which is basically an index depicting how much water is available to the landscape. This is rain-fed landscapes we're looking at here, basically says the same thing, that we have all the greens down in the southern part of the state, lush conditions, absolutely no, excess water on the landscape. But as you move north and west, you can see the browns here develop, and there are areas where there's just basically not enough water to continue for unhindered evapotranspiration. That's especially true in western upper Michigan. That's probably the driest area of the state, but we do again have some spots, northwestern lower, and in portions of interior northern lower, that are actually a little drier than well, a little dry for this time of the year. But the point is, probably overall, a wide range of conditions across the state, from too much to too little. Our degree day totals and thermal accumulation, looking at the season, range from a little bit behind, a little bit of a deficit in western upper Michigan, about 50 units, base 50. This assumes a May 1 start or planting date. And now we have a surplus with the warmer than normal week here. This last week, we added on more surplus. Southeast, we're up to 200 units ahead of normal. And if you look at the calendar and you do the mathematics or the arithmetic here, that translates in some cases to more than a calendar week ahead of normal. So again, if crops appear to be more advanced than usual, well, there's a reason for it. It's because we've had generally a warm growing season, at least the early part of it especially, but we also tacked on some excess degree days or surplus degree days last week as well. So most of lower Michigan, you can see, is in the surplus category for degree days, and again, at least a few days, to some cases more than a week ahead of normal. Well, let's move ahead to the forecast here, because there are significant changes that have taken place since our warm week of last week. And I'm just going to start here with a lot of colors here, but this is forecast guidance really looking at the upcoming week. And it says a couple things really loudly, clearly, and this high confidence here. In the middle down here below is the forecast jet stream pattern here for the next several days. And the important thing is, meteorologically, to look here, you've got a huge ridge up over Western Canada. It'll be warm and dry in that part of North America, the part of the continent, down into the western U.S. But more importantly for us here, there's a big trough right over the Great Lakes area. And airflow with this is coming out of the north. And even though there's a ridge there and there's warmer than normal conditions in Western North America, we're looking at a repeated sequence or cycle of cool, dry air masses moving into the Great Lakes region here over the next several days and weeks. And on the left-hand side here, this is the forecast temperature anomaly down at the surface, and all those blues in the middle of the country, right under that trough. Cooler than normal conditions are expected. Very high likelihood of this for the next several days or better part of a week. And on the right-hand side here, these are precipitation anomalies for the same time frame up through the actually through the 3rd or 15th, actually, it should be of August, and drier than normal. So with an airflow, a trajectory like this, it's typically cool and dry is a really, really strong bet. And so that's the theme that you should be thinking about. There's one exception to that, and that would be the far northern part of the state, because they're going to be close enough to the storm track to pick up at least a little bit of precipitation out of this. And that's where we'll start here. Our weather map this morning. We have high pressure over most of the state, similar to yesterday, with one exception. You can see a weak weather system here moving across central Ontario, dragging a cold front. That's going to move through the state over the next 24 hours, but we will see showers with that across, well, mainly across the Upper Peninsula, maybe a couple sprinkles getting into the northern lower. The rest of the state will remain sunny, fair, and dry. And it's going to be another gorgeous day for a lot of certainly central and southern sections, mid to upper 70s to near 80 for a high with mostly sunny skies. But if you're in the UP, you'll be looking at variably cloudy skies with some showers moving through during the course of the day. So that'll be the exception, but rather the exception rather than the rule. By tomorrow, the front makes it through, and you can see another. Again, this is associated with that upper air pattern we just looked at, another front moving in from the north. That's going to cause more and we'll call it scattered showers. Now, also important to note, even in the northern part of the state where we do expect some rainfall here over the next couple of days, it's not anything heavy. This is all, we're talking scattered showers, a 1/10 or 2 of an inch at best, limited, no heavy rainfall anticipated really anywhere in the state or the region, and nothing like what we've seen over the last few weeks. But so if it does rain in the north, it's going to be it's going to be definitely on the light side, and like today, tomorrow, mostly dry. Here's Saturday morning, more of the same. Another little trough that's that orange dash line here, a little low pressure wind shift line coming through. More scattered showers possible in the far north, but the same story in the south. We will see now. Note this is another important thing. There is some cooler air moving in, especially behind this next front on Friday and Saturday. And so as we look at temperatures here over the next several days, I mentioned cooler than normal. That's definitely the rule. But on Saturday, we'll actually early fall conditions with the air mass moving in are going to be here, and we'll actually see some lake effect cloudiness as that cooler air goes over the relatively warm waters of the lakes. There might even be a couple of sprinkles of lake effect showers in western and northern parts of the state, but most of the state will just be variably cloudy, a little breezy and cool. High temperatures on Saturday, which is probably going to be the coolest day of the upcoming week, maybe not even reaching 70 in many areas. So it'll be at least 10 degrees Fahrenheit below the normals for this time of the year. Low temperatures from the upper 40s and interior areas of the north to the 50s. So very, very comfortable for people, but definitely cooler than normal for the second week in August. And again, in terms of precipitation, very little other than that scattered chance up in the northern part of the state. So if we look at the forecast totals here for the upcoming week through next Thursday morning, basically any rainfall of any significance confined to the UP. That's the rainfall we're looking at over the next couple days. But even there, quarter, maybe half an inch tops in a few spots. For much of lower Michigan, the lower peninsula here, less than a quarter or no rain at all. So a dry week we're looking at here. And I think, again, fairly high likelihood of this. If there is any precipitation, it's just going to probably be sprinkles or something very, very light, but very certainly on the low side. That's with high confidence for the upcoming week. Our potential evapotranspiration rates here for the next week are because of they're going to be assisted or elevated because of the sunny conditions, but they'll be limited because of the cooler air temperature. So pretty close to normal, 1400ths to 1700ths per day on average. And that's about what climatology tells us where we should be for the second week in August. These are weekly totals here that I'm showing here. A couple people wrote here actually and asked about this potential evapotranspiration, this reference value that we talk about during our briefings and where it comes from, and is there any source of it? Well, the answer, yes. I just wanted to add this here as a resource, and you can screen capture here, whatever, but there's several sources of this information or show you where I get it. EnviroWeather definitely is one of the places I start with. We calculate this value here on a daily basis, and that's observed at all of the 80 plus sites around the state of Michigan. That's on the left-hand side here, and you can see the links. Also, you can get a map of PET reference on the far right from our colleagues and friends over at the University of Wisconsin. If you want to see that in map form for a given day. One of the most useful ones, though, and the one that I use here in the briefings from the National Weather Service, this in contrast to the other two, which are historical data, this one is a projected or a forecast for the upcoming week. And there you can see that's at weather.gov. Where that particular map comes from. So you can get that really easily off the web if you want to get that yourself. This is a good place to start where to find that. Now, looking ahead beyond this cool, dry week, I think the general direction here, the trend is back towards where we've been. The jet stream pattern here by the middle of the month is expected to shift with that ridge coming closer to us here over the middle of the continent. And what that means is that ultimately we will see a transition from cooler than normal back to warmer than normal. And so right now, again, the timing on this probably around the middle of the month. It also suggests, again, that active storm track along the U.S.-Canadian border with normal to above normal precipitation totals. So now both the 6 to 10 day and 8 to 14 day outlooks are suggesting we will move back or transition back to that warm and active weather pattern here by the end of the month, and probably then continue for much of the rest of the month of August. So I guess take advantage of this cool, dry spell that we have now, because again, most of the guidance really, really strongly suggests that we are going to move out of that here before too long, another week out. I wanted to have too the new modified outlook for August because it's consistent with what you just saw in the 6 to 10 and the 8 to 14 day outlook. On the top here, mean temperatures expected for the month of August overall to average out after a cooler than normal week coming up. We go back to warmer than normal for the whole month. The outlook now is, again, normal to above normal, warmer than normal, with above normal precipitation totals. So again, even though it's forecast to be dry for most of the state here for a week, we haven't seen the end of that active weather pattern. It probably returns for the second half of the month. And the outlooks beyond that, for the end of our growing season and into the early fall, they're also consistent, warmer than normal. They've been that way for a while with no direction on precipitation. But the warmer than normal, I think that's the important message in that longer lead. That's probably where we spend most of the rest of the growing season. So the surpluses of degree days that we've talked about this before, very, very likely will continue to be with, and we will see an earlier than normal probably end of the season, at least for our degree day accumulations and requirements. So summarizing here, cool and dry early, with ultimately with the transition back towards warmer and wetter than normal by the middle of the month, and almost all the forecast guidance is really in the same page with this. So I think the confidence in this is fairly high. And with that, I'm going to wrap up our weather, and I'll turn it back to Teresa